At today's sentencing, several accusers confronted the former superstar, the judge calling his abuse calculated and carefully planned for 25 years.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about R&B superstar R. Kelly finally being sentenced to 30 years in the penitentiary for sex trafficking and racketeering. Now, this was a long time coming. I've been watching this story play out since the 1990s. Okay, this is not anything new. It's not like, oh, these girls came out from a million years ago and levied allegations against R. Kelly. No. This has been documented, proven, and there's been rumors and everything else. You have everything from documented facts on paperwork, to rumors and everything in between. So this, in my humble opinion, was a long time coming. Now, before I dive into it, let's roll the clip. In this clip, you get a little bit more context about how this whole thing happened, the legal stuff behind it, and a little bit more background. But after we get done watching that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what was said there. I'll give you some more background. Then I'll give you the rest of my 2 cents and my deep detail analysis. And then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
But we do begin tonight with singer R. Kelly, sentenced to 30 years behind bars after his conviction on racketeering and sex trafficking charges. Prosecutors accused him of leading a criminal enterprise of managers, bodyguards, and other employees to recruit and abuse women, underage girls, and a teenage boy. Accusations swirled around him for decades, and authorities believe for years his actions were protected by his fame. Then in 2019, in the TV docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, a number of alleged victims came forward to publicly accuse him of abuse. Arrests followed on charges in Illinois, and in federal court, Kelly held without bail for nearly 3 years now. At today's sentencing, several accusers confronted the former superstar, the judge calling his abuse calculated and carefully planned for 25 years. ABC's Stephanie Ramos leading us off tonight.
After decades of sexual misconduct allegations, tonight, a federal judge in Brooklyn sentenced singer and convicted sexual predator R. Kelly to 30 years in prison.
This is a significant outcome for all victims of R. Kelly, and especially for the survivors who so bravely testified about the horrific and sadistic abuse they endured.
The one-time music superstar faced life behind bars after a jury found him guilty in federal court on 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of sex trafficking. The trial lasting nearly 6 weeks, with close to 50 witnesses testifying against Kelly, more than half of them alleging abuse, several represented by Gloria Allred.
You've called R. Kelly the worst perpetrator that you've pursued. Why is that?
He recruited fans of his, targeted them, intimidated them, indoctrinated them, threatened them, sexually assaulted them.
Federal authorities looking into the years of accusations after the explosive Lifetime docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, in which dozens of accusers alleged the singer had abused them. Kelly did not testify at his trial. Tonight, one of Kelly's accusers relieved.
I never thought that I would be here to see him be held accountable for the atrocious things that he did to children.
And the legal fight for R. Kelly isn't over. His lawyers say he didn't speak during the hearing today because he still has a pending case in Illinois. His lawyers also say they plan to appeal his verdict today right here in Brooklyn. David.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, as I said from the beginning, finally, R. Kelly has been sentenced to jail time, to prison time, 30 years in the penitentiary. He won't come home until he's in his 80s. I think it's like 55, something like that, right around that. So he won't come home for a very long time, and he deserved it. Now, let's just go back to 2 main things that I can think of. There are plenty of victims here. Okay, he had 9 felony charges in September, 8 count sex trafficking, 1 count racketeering. And he violated the Mann Act, transporting victims across state lines. There was even the mail that came out against him. So there were quite a bit of things going on here. 7 of his victims came out in court and shared testimony. But this article, I'm not going to read like I said. I'm giving you a little bit more background than what may have been in the video. But the 2 main things that I remember as a young man are still things that matter today. The main thing was his marriage to R&B singer Aaliyah. May she rest in peace. She died back, I think it might have been in 2001 after a plane accident, which was a whole different story. And I won't go down that road, so I digress. But here's the story. When she was about 13 to 14 years old, she was singing a lot in local competitions and everything. And I think there was a record label called Jive. It may have been Jive or a different label. It doesn't really matter what the label is. But her uncle is a guy by the name of Barry Hankerson. Barry Hankerson was an executive at the label. Barry Hankerson was also R. Kelly's manager. So Barry Hankerson says, hey, R. Kelly, I want you to meet my niece, Aaliyah, who's out in Detroit singing. So Barry Hankerson brings R. Kelly to Aaliyah for music purposes because R. Kelly at the time, he's a songwriter, producer, and a singer himself. So that was that connection. Now, I don't know if Barry Hankerson handed Aaliyah to R. Kelly knowing what kind of monster R. Kelly is and was. I don't know that, but the way the industry is and the way that people are, sometimes you can't really put that past anybody, because one of these girls that was in R. Kelly's house recently, to fast forward a little bit, talking about maybe I can leave, maybe I can't leave, all this, that, and the third, the girl was talking about how her parents gave her to R. Kelly. And if you do something like that in the year 2018, 2019, whenever that was, you had to have known about Aaliyah and everybody else and the sex tape and whatnot. So you did that intentionally, knowing what would happen. But let's get back to Aaliyah. So R. Kelly meets Aaliyah, and then they produce Aaliyah's first album from 1993 to 1994. Now, Aaliyah was born in 1979. So 1993, she would have been 14 years old. Okay, she would have just turned 14 years old when they met. She might have been 13 when they met. Let's just say she was 14. So from the ages of 14 to 15, they recorded the first album. Now, what was the album called? Anybody want to take a quick guess? Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. That was also the lead single. Age ain't nothing but a number. Throwing down ain't nothing but a thing. What does throwing down mean? Use your imagination. This was the album and the song that R. Kelly wrote and produced for Aaliyah when he was 27 years old and she was 14 to 15, right? He's a fully grown man, almost 30 years old, and she is a like 9th or 10th grader, okay? So they appear in interviews together. There was one interview in 1994 when she was about 15 years old. He's 27, 28. They're wearing matching outfits. Then they got married when she was, I believe, 15. They lied on the marriage certificate and said she was 18, so it'd be quote unquote legal. Now, once her parents found out, the marriage was annulled. I'm not really sure how long the marriage lasted. It might have been a year or less, but they were married. There is paperwork. It's not a rumor. There is paperwork. It's documented. It's proven. He was married to Aaliyah when she was 15 and he was at least 27 years old. And the rumor was she might have been pregnant and they got married to try and conceal any kind of abuse, which I don't know how that was going to work. We know how old she is. Okay. You can figure it out. At that time, also during that time, I remember this whole thing. People didn't really know how old Aaliyah was as far as the general public. Now, if you go talk to her parents, they know, but we didn't really know. It was it was a mystery. Why didn't we know? Because it would have looked crazy for R. Kelly to be a full-grown man, almost 30 years old, with this 14-year-old girl messing with her, right? That's one thing. The second thing was a sex tape. Now, I'm not going to say I saw the sex tape, but I saw screenshots of the sex tape, and there were certain screenshots of the sex tape that came out back, what was that, like early 2000s maybe? I'm not really sure when they came out. Doesn't really matter. There were certain screenshots in the sex tape that had very distinctive features as far as the rooms in R. Kelly's house, or the house that was alleged to have been R. Kelly's. Now, here's what BET did. BET had this special called BET Home Living. It was the same thing as MTV Cribs, if you remember that. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but for the young people out there, and if you're a little bit older and didn't watch it, MTV Cribs was like lifestyles of the rich and famous. They go into your house and show it around, show the rooms, that kind of thing. Kind of like HGTV was ahead of its time. But anyway, so they did a BET Home Living for R. Kelly, and they showed specific rooms that were in the sex tape. And this was etched in my memory like it was yesterday. It's right there. I could still access it like it was yesterday. Right when that sex tape came out, BET played that particular special on repeat over and over and over again. It was like they were trying to tell you, hey, if you saw that sex tape, you saw certain rooms in the tape. They matched the rooms that are in this BET Home Living special. That was him. That was his house. The whole thing was, oh, that's not me. All this and that and the third. Well, it sure looks like you and looks like your house. So what's going on? And then there was an interview with Torre on BET where Torre asked him, do you like teenage girls? He's like, well, how old are we talking? Define teenage.
Do you like teenage girls?
When you say teenage, how old are we talking?
R. Kelly been a creep for a long time. There's so much evidence. It's a cornucopia of evidence. It's insurmountable. Now, I'm going to address this part. Some say, well, why did he get 30 years and Ghislaine Maxwell only got 20 years? That's an unfair comparison, in my humble opinion. I think Ghislaine Maxwell was a person procuring the girls for Epstein. I think the better comparison would be to Jeffrey Epstein. It'd be Jeffrey Epstein to R. Kelly, not R. Kelly to Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was a handler and a procurer, not so much the Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of what it looks like. And of course, the main thing here is political connections. It's all about who you know. It's the same reason why Bill Cosby is not going to get locked up anytime soon. I mean, he's facing some charges right now. I think it was one thing that came out. He had to pay like $500,000. I mean, what's 500 grand to Bill Cosby, one of the richest, one of the most famous people in the world? What's 500 grand to him? It's nothing. You know, he won't go to the penitentiary. He was in jail for a while and that got overturned. What was he in jail for, like a year or something like that? It didn't even, that was pretty much nothing burger. He won't get any kind of big 30-year sentence like an R. Kelly because of his power in Hollywood and because of what he was doing was not necessarily all the way illegal. Immoral, yes, but sometimes it wasn't always illegal. And then even if it was illegal, the fact that it was immoral from the beginning and a lot of these women kind of engaged in it voluntarily, it makes it difficult to really charge anything as serious as what R. Kelly got. But see, R. Kelly was dealing with underage girls and that was his main thing. It wasn't even the drug and then the casting couch. It was 14-year-old girls getting married to him when you're 28 years old trying to hide what you're doing. Now, as I close, I want to say this. This was a long time coming. I'm glad that it finally happened. I'm kind of surprised, actually, they got this much time. I'm surprised, but it's a pleasant kind of surprise because he most certainly earned this amount of time in the penitentiary. And I hope that a lot of the other abusers and whatnot that exist in the world are also brought to justice just the same way. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about R. Kelly getting 30 years in the penitentiary? Is it too much, too little? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments. You guys know where I stand. This is the appropriate sentence. I'll challenge you to find anyone that'll be like, well, actually, it's not. Find anyone that'll say that. I'm not really sure that you will. And if you do, keep an eye on that person. They're not really to be trusted. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.